they may have uncovered the true origins of Britain's most famous monument. This is the story of the lost circle of Stonehenge.
Did you know that Stonehenge might hold secrets far darker than anyone ever expected? What if we discovered the truth about this old building, which could change everything we thought we knew about our ancestors? Today, we're going to discuss shocking discoveries that reveal a side of Stonehenge you haven't seen before. The man who saw Stonehenge differently. Most people think of an old circle of stones in the English countryside when they hear the word Stonehenge. Instead, Gerald Hawkins thought of Stonehenge as more than just a building. He thought of it as a puzzle that had to be solved. In the 1960s, most historians didn't do much more than dig and guess. Not Hawkins, though. He used computers to look at the spot in a way that no one had thought of before. At the time, this wasn't just weird. It was a big deal. Most scientists thought that Stonehenge was a beautiful but strange building that had no clear purpose and was lost in history. They thought about holy ceremonies or druidic ways of doing things. On the other hand, Hawkins had a different view. Not only did he want to know what it was, but also how it was used. What he said would change everything. Hawkins did more than just look at the stones. It took him a long time to figure out where the stones were in relation to the sky, but what he discovered was truly amazing. He learned that Stonehenge was more than just a circle of stones. It was a carefully planned observatory where people could keep an eye on the sun, moon, and stars. Hawkins realized that the statue was built to draw attention to important events in the sky, like the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year, and the winter solstice, which is the shortest. There was a spot where the sky could tell you the time, like an old clock that could tell you exactly when the seasons would change. Hawkins didn't just say what he thought. He used computer models, which were brand new at the time, to prove it. His math showed that Stonehenge was so straight that it may have followed the equinoxes, which are times when day and night are equal. Hundreds or even thousands of years ago, the sun didn't just rise and set. It did so in a very specific way, just the way the makers of long ago planned. Hawkins's discovery changed more than just our ideas about Stonehenge. It also changed how we think about people who lived in the past. I thought it was crazy that the people who built Stonehenge could tell time by looking up at the sky. These people weren't just playing. They knew so much about the universe that most people today can't even begin to imagine it. It looked like they drew a universe map, and Stonehenge was their way of getting to it. The thing Hawkins found showed us that past societies were a lot smarter than we thought. What surprised you the most? People couldn't just tell each other about the universe. The way the stones were set showed that it wasn't a guess based on luck. It was planned and done on purpose by people who had a lot of connections to the sky. How did they know, though? Did they learn this from someone else? Or did they figure it out on their own? Hawkins would never forget this scary question. He knew one thing for sure. Stonehenge was more than just a bunch of rocks. He would spend the rest of his life trying to figure out what it all meant. There was a time when people really felt like they were linked to the stars because of things like this. Hawkins's findings changed the way people study Stonehenge forever. He broke down the mysterious walls that had been around the monument and opened a door to a whole new world of potential. No longer were the people who built Stonehenge just humans with hammers and knives. They used the sky as a guide and were very good at engineering, astronomy, and seeing the future. But Hawkins's findings made a lot of noise in the scientific world, which led to even bigger problems. What was the point of these old people putting in so much work to build something that lined up with things happening in the sky? What did they think this information meant? Why did they build Stonehenge? This information might be linked to something darker that we still don't fully understand. That's maybe the scariest thing of all. Hawkins spent the rest of his life trying to find answers to these questions. The answers still bother historians today. Hawkins changed the way we thought about Stonehenge, but what he found was not the worst thing. The more we learn about Stonehenge's astrological design, the more we understand that it was made with information that people shouldn't have had at the time. Still, it was built. What if this discovery was more about now than the past? What if it meant something? A clue about a much bigger mystery? They could still be out there, just waiting to be found. And the real reason for Stonehenge might be scarier than anyone thought, as we dig deeper into the dark. The terrifying truth. Gerald Hawkins didn't just see a pile of old rocks when he looked at Stonehenge. he saw something much stronger and more frightening. He realized that the people who built this structure knew a lot more about the universe than we thought was possible for people living in the Stone Age. Stonehenge wasn't just a circle of stone set up in a certain way. This tool for figuring out what was in the sky was built with such perfect measurements and alignment that it seemed to go against everything we thought we knew about ancient societies. Hawkins's research showed that Stonehenge was made to very accurately track the movements of the stars. The stones weren't just thrown down, they were put with great care to show the path of the sun across the sky. Hawkins used computer models to study the building and found that it wasn't just a way to tell the time. It could also be used to predict things that happened in the sky, like eclipses, the solstice and equinoxes, and the moon cycles. The people who built Stonehenge didn't just happen. These events were important to how they saw the world and planned their lives. But Hawkins was left with a scary question. Where did this vast knowledge come from? It seems strange that a culture that didn't have modern tools or even written language could have such a clear picture of how the world works. What Hawkins found out about the answer made him think of something much scarier than just good observation skills. The people who built Stonehenge didn't just make a landmark, they also put a lot of information into the way the stones are arranged. They seemed to be talking to the stars and getting information that had been passed down, kept secret, or maybe even lost to time. It was much more than just a way to keep track of time or plant food. Hawkins said it looked like the people who built Stonehenge knew about the spiritual meaning of the universe. Stonehenge wasn't just a place to study the stars or guess what would happen. It was also a spiritual hub where people connected with the world. The things Hawkins found made it seem like the statue might have been more than just a tool. A holy place was built there by people who saw the sky as divine and wanted to worship or honor it. The stones weren't perfectly lined up by chance. It was a reflection of their spiritual views and a way for them to connect what they knew about the stars with the real world. What Hawkins found was even scarier than he thought. This wasn't just a place for rituals or a stone calendar. The people who built Stonehenge had a plan that went far beyond their own town. It took a lot of planning and teamwork to build such an exact monument, which showed that Stonehenge wasn't just for a small group of people. It was probably used by more than one group of people from different areas, cultures, and even generations. Based on Hawkins' study, Stonehenge may have been a place where people from different cultures shared spiritual and astronomical knowledge that went beyond geography. This new information makes us question everything we thought we knew about how early humans lived together. Were the people who built Stonehenge just local farmers, or were they part of a bigger, more complicated network of societies? Did they share knowledge and traditions with people who lived far away? Hunting Hawkins found clues that pointed to something much more complex than we thought. It's not true that Stonehenge stood alone. It was a part of a bigger web of cultural exchange that went beyond Britain and maybe even to other parts of Europe. What Hawkins found pointed to something that would shock both archaeologists and scholars. Not only was the idea that people in the past knew a lot about the stars, the moon, and the world new and exciting, but it was also very scary. The more Hawkins looked, the more he realized that this information might have been passed down from an earlier society or had been found again by people who knew how important it was. Even scarier was the idea that this information might have been kept secret on purpose or lost over time, and Hawkins would only find it right before he died. Why was this information kept so secret? What did it mean for the people who built Stonehenge to know so much about the universe? Did people build Stonehenge to talk to the gods, or was it something darker, like a way to keep people in line? Hawkins' findings didn't just answer questions. They also led us closer to the scary idea that the people who built Stonehenge were connected to a much bigger story that we are only now beginning to understand. As Hawkins himself might have said, we've only just begun to scratch the surface. And what we find next could shake our understanding of human history to its core. A mystery revealed. The blue stones at Stonehenge were a riddle for a long time. They were different from the other stones because they were smaller but still very strong. But what was so great about them? Why were they so important? Where did they come from? Gerald Hawkins found the answer, which went against all reasoning and expectation. The blue stones did not come from the Salisbury Plain. They came from the Preseli Hills in Wales, which is more than 150 miles away. Just this seemed impossible. How could people in the past have moved such big stones over such a long distance without modern tools? Everything changed because of Hawkins' study. They didn't just pick these blue stones at random, he found out. They were picked on purpose, not because they were small or easy to move, but because of the special things about them. Hawkins said these stones were meaningful because they weren't just used for building, but also as religious symbols. It was scary to think that people in the past would go to such great lengths to bring these stones to Stonehenge. Why were these stones so important? The answer wasn't easy. It wasn't about being useful. It wasn't about making things easier. It is possible that these stones were picked because they had spiritual or ritual meaning. Hawkins thought that the blue stones might have been related to spiritual practices from long ago, possibly because people thought the stones had powers beyond their physical properties. The people who made Stonehenge didn't just see rocks. They saw ways to connect with the earth, the universe, and maybe even something deeper. But as Hawkins dug deeper, it became clearer how scary the effects were. These stones didn't just hold useful information, they also held something old and maybe even magical. Most likely, the people who built Stonehenge thought of the blue stones as a way to connect with the gods or the forces of the world. In many old cultures, stones were thought to be alive and full of spiritual or energetic power, and because these blue stones had come from such a long way, they may have been seen as holy objects, still carrying the energy of where they came from. It turned into a bigger question than just how to move the stones. The real puzzle was why these stones were picked. Why were they chosen over other things that were easier to get to? People knew the Preseli Hills were special because of the way their rocks were formed. The stones came from a place with a lot of spotted dolerite, which was thought to have special properties. People might have thought that these stones could heal or were connected to ancient information that was too powerful for regular people to understand. People thought that these stones could carry the spirit of the land where they came from. Did the builders think that the stones could link them to a higher power that was linked to the stars, the gods, or even the earth? Hawkins thought that moving these stones was more than just a technical feat. He saw it as a ritual. Putting the monuments next to each other took a lot of work, but it wasn't just about that. It was also about linking them to something bigger. It took a lot of work to line up the stones with astronomical events like the sun's path, the solstices, and maybe even the moon's waves. It wasn't a mistake. It was spiritually important that the act bring people together and help them understand. But this made me think of another scary question. How did the people who built Stonehenge know that the stones were so important to them spiritually? What did they plan to do with these holy stones? That these stones had come from such a long way could hold the knowledge or power they were looking for so badly? Were they calling on forces they couldn't control? The scary truth is that these stones may not have been used for building. The stones held the beliefs and knowledge of a long-lost society and were very strong. The people who built Stonehenge may have thought that by taking these stones from Wales to Salisbury Plain, they were connecting to something old and cosmic that had to do with their spiritual beliefs as well as the earth and the stars. The terrifying precision of Stonehenge's stones. Look at the sarsen stones. Gerald Hawkins found a scary truth about Stonehenge that changed everything we thought we knew about it. Some of these huge rocks are 30 feet tall and weigh up to 30 tons. Not only were they not just thrown there, but they were also carefully chosen, shaped, and placed. It was a lot of work to move them, which didn't make sense for a society that wasn't meant to have modern tools. The sarsens were useful, but they were also part of a much bigger structure, a landmark that was meant to be used for more than just religious ceremonies or keeping track of time. Hawkins's research showed that the sarsen stones were carefully arranged to mark important times in the sky, such as the solstices, equinoxes, and maybe even moon cycles. This wasn't done by people from a primitive society. The engineers who worked on it were very smart and knew how the sky moved as well as we do now. This was scary news because it broke the idea that society was simple and well run. They didn't just respect the stars, they controlled them by putting big stones in patterns that let them keep an eye on the unseen forces in the sky. It took more than just strength to build Stonehenge. Also, you had to know a lot about it, learn about the earth and the stars and how to change them to make a plan work in the universe. There was more to this building than just religion. It was also a complicated way to watch the sky and guess what would happen. As Hawkins found, Stonehenge was used for more than just events. People also went there to look at the stars. A group of people who knew a lot about the universe made this tool. The question now was, how did they know that? It is clear what the scary truth is about the Sarsen stones. People who built Stonehenge knew a lot about the world, more than we do now. There was a religious spot there, as well as a memorial to an old way of seeing the world that is still hidden in the stones. This isn't the work of a primitive, isolated people. It's the work of a very modern society that knows a lot about technology, astronomy, and how to connect with others. That is the scariest thing ever. But what if this information wasn't just about space? What if the people who built Stonehenge were in on a much darker plot? What if the stones are connected to a power that has been lost but still haunts us? Hawkins' final revelations. Gerald Hawkins learned something in his last few years that will forever change how people study Stonehenge. Hawkins told archaeologists about a find that was so important that it shocked everyone before he died. People didn't work alone, as different tribes did when they built Stonehenge. They were part of a much larger group of countries that were linked by an understanding of the stars and spirituality. It had been hundreds of years since puzzle solvers had seen this piece of the problem. Hawkins' research showed that Stonehenge wasn't just a local building project. It was part of a much bigger culture network that stretched across Britain and maybe even farther. It changed everything to think that Stonehenge was built by a group of people who shared knowledge and ideas. People thought for a long time that the statue was made by a small group of brave people in a town that no one remembered. Hawkins learned something shocking though. The people who built Stonehenge were connected to everything else in a much bigger world. It was most scary to think that Hawkins' most recent find might have been more than just a structure at Stonehenge. A lot of people thought it was just a church website or a big calendar, but it wasn't. Hawkins instead said that Stonehenge was a holy building connected to a long-lost religious or spiritual system that linked many societies that lived in different places. Because of ideas that are still hard for us to fully understand, these groups were able to talk to each other. They were all interested in the same things, the stars and the world. It was both interesting and scary to think that Stonehenge stood for a religion that no longer exists around the world. There is no answer to this question because Hawkins died without giving one. What they found didn't answer all the questions that were put forward. What did these old groups know that we don't know? How did they make it so easy for them to understand the sky so well? What else did they hide in the stones at Stonehenge so that people would find it later? Hawkins died before he could fully look into these options. This makes what he found even creepier and more mysterious. His last and scariest idea is that the people who built Stonehenge weren't just looking at the stars. They were trying to connect with something much bigger. The bigger truth may still be hidden in the way the stones at Stonehenge are set up, just waiting for someone to find it. Thanks for discovering the terrifying truths behind Stonehenge with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more mind-blowing discoveries. Click on the next video popping up on your screen to continue the journey.